Is Kim Miller, and I'm the program director at Ignatian Solidarity Network. I wanted to thank each of you for being part of today's Advocacy 101 webinar. This webinar is geared toward helping you learn some of the basics behind having a successful lobby visit when you go to Capitol Hill on the Monday following Advocacy Day. So we're delighted to be joined by Meg Olson, who is the grassroots mobilization manager for our partner network, Catholic Social Justice Lobby, and has a lot of great experience in teaching folks about some of the basics of lobbying. So I will pass the podium, if you will, to Meg. So thank you, Meg.
All right, well, thank you, Kim. I'm always glad to do this for IFTJ. So just as Kim said, my name is Meg. And yeah, this is real, just mostly focusing on how to lobby. So let's get started. Just a little bit about network. And I'm excited to say that we are now members of the Ignatian Solidarity Network. But we are both a lobby and a nonprofit 501c3 that educates, organizes, and lobbies for economic and social transformation. We work on federal level policies, really focusing on economic justice and then access issues around healthcare, affordable housing, immigration, democracy. Oh. Perfect. Yeah, so in affordable housing and access to citizenship, which is how we talk about immigration. So, and we were founded by Catholic sisters. We are about to turn 45, so this is exciting. And we're here in DC. I know many of you have probably been to our offices with students, and we love to do that. So yes, so today I'm going to do kind of a general overview of advocacy so you're able to place your Hill lobby visit at IFTJ in the context of what we are doing and what you continue to do once you go back home, or even hopefully what you're already doing right now in your communities with your social justice groups and ministries that you're involved with. So we're going to talk about why lobbying is so important and what it means to be a constituent coming to Capitol Hill. And then we're going to go through basically step by step what the ins and outs of the lobby visit, kind of a playbook of what it should look like. So just thinking about advocacy on a broader scale, it's basically any action that shows support or promotion of policies and that influence change and decisions within institutions or social systems, especially looking at political or economic systems. So of course we are talking about, if we think about the 2 feet of love and action, we are definitely talking about the left foot, the social justice action foot, right? We are changing systems, to bring God's kingdom to this world. And network's definition is much simpler than this, and it's a really, this idea of speaking truth to power. And really, as advocates, what you're going to be doing when you're at IFTJ is really bringing the needs of your community, of your state, of your city, even of your school community, to the people who have the power to create change. And in this case, that is our members of Congress. So you will be speaking for, and I think in many situations also speaking with, but thinking about all the people that you represent when you go and lobby on that Monday at IFTJ. And I know that you're going to be lobbying on immigration and then also criminal justice, correct, Kim?
Correct.
Great. Okay. So, and I just, obviously we are people of faith, and we are, the whole point of IFTJ is to really bring Ignatian spirituality and Catholic social justice to Washington. And so it is important when we're doing our advocacy of any kind to really lift up that faith voice. For me, it's really hard to believe this because this is how, like, where I always come from as an advocate and as a community organizer, as a person of faith, as a Catholic. But what we hear from our partners here in DC, our secular partners, is that the faith voice does not get heard enough on these issues. And it seems like, right, especially as the church, as the Ignatian family, we really raise up the issue of immigration and certainly criminal justice as well, but especially immigration. And yet that voice is so important. And it also impacts how we interact with our lawmakers, right? We, as Sister Simone likes to say, our executive director here at Network, we have to recognize God in every legislator, even those that totally disagree with us. And this is, right, like our approach to building relationships with our lawmakers looks a lot different than some organizations and groups out there, especially after the election, that are definitely more antagonistic. And I think just especially as younger advocates, as newer advocates, that many of your students are probably coming from this place, it's really important to have that faith, whether they're Catholic or not, and their values as like rooting them in what they are doing and the why of what we're doing. We know this is really, really hard work. We know that especially in this climate in DC and this administration, the things that we're lobbying for, we're going to experience a lot of setbacks and failures. And so just knowing that, right, this is all happening on God's time and that this is a long haul journey and that this lobby day is one small part of that is really important for everyone to recognize. So just our basic components of advocacy are educate, organize, and lobby. And I'm pointing this out because there are so many things that you, especially, you know, in schools, whether they're high schools or colleges, can do back home and in preparation, but certainly afterwards, that don't involve making direct contact with your legislator. To have a robust advocacy program, certainly having films and speaker panels and even social media campaigns is really important. Having vigils, having rallies, especially around immigration. We know that there's, you know, in the faith community, we have pilgrimages and dream Sabbaths and all sorts of events that can bring people out to raise awareness about these issues and unify people to work on them. And then, of course, lobbying, you know, making sure that everything that we're doing is connected to some sort of action that influences a member of Congress. So, of course, lobbying is not just doing a Hill visit. It's taking any sort of action that is going to influence a member of Congress. Or, you know, of course, we're getting ready to come to the Hill, but, you know, especially at the local level, a state rep or a city ordinance. And it's really, for us, right, we're bringing justice to the world through our lobbying. And it's also a really important part of that is providing the information. And I'm going to talk more about that in a couple of minutes, but being a constituent, being from the district means that you have a perspective that is not received very often on Capitol Hill. So let's keep that in mind as we're thinking about why is it so important that we're doing this at IFTJ. So there's lots of different tactics that you can use to influence a member of Congress or any lawmaker at any level. And so again, I think this is really important as we're thinking about, you know, what else can our young people be doing after that day on the Hill. Certainly, you know, writing letters to the editor, engaging in, you know, Ignatian Solidarity emails or USCCB or whoever you're comfortable with network. We have lots of action alerts. having, and certainly doing some of the more in-district work as well are all things we can do. But of course, today we're going to focus on visits to Capitol Hill. Excuse me. So this study, it comes out every 2 years, and I'm sharing this with you because I think it really shows this is not just an exercise in going to Washington and practicing talking about our faith and our concerns around immigration and criminal justice, but it is a time to really influence our members of Congress. This study is one that's done of congressional staffers on both sides of the aisle. And it's done by this organization, this nonpartisan organization called the Congressional Management Foundation. And so we'll see, out of all the different ways that we can reach out to a member of Congress, an in-person issue visit from constituents has the most positive influence on a member of Congress. And again, this is because right here in DC, we have a lot of lobbyists representing organizations and representing the people out there as opposed to the people themselves from their various states. So I just wanted, the second one is contact from constituents reps. And so that would be like the lobbyists from the Jesuits or the lobbyists from networks saying like, I am, in a meeting with Senator Durbin and network has 4,000 members in Illinois. And so we're representing that population. So that also, as you can see, has some positive influence, but the constituent visit has a lot more, has a stronger pull on how much influence that has. So I think this is really important to keep in mind. And of course, what makes it unique that that you'll be individuals from that person's district, from Jesuit institutions, is that, of course, you are rooting your lobby visit and your view on these issues in faith and morality. We know that not every student that's coming to IFTJ is Catholic, and that's fine. They might not even be a person of faith, but this is definitely an opportunity for our young people to really root themselves in their morals and values and their sense of their Catholic identity and Ignatian identity. And this is also, right, the other value that a constituent from a district has is this personal story. This picture here is of Sister Simone. She's telling a story of Melanie, who died because she did not have health insurance. And Sister Simone carries this photo with her everywhere. And this is a very personal story for Sister Simone because she met the woman's sisters. They came up and said, oh my gosh, this is so important that we're working on healthcare. So, even if, I imagine that some of the young people at IFTJ are going to have very personal stories about immigration or perhaps, communities of color impacted by mass incarceration. But I think, any connection that our advocates have on the Hill that day, even if it's in a larger context, is still really important. Members of Congress don't get to hear very many stories of real people in their districts. There's a lot of data, a lot of theory. And I think that the other thing is, especially in a visit that might not be to a legislator who shares our values or our views on these issues, they can't dispute a personal experience or an observation about, oh my goodness, there was an arrest in our community, right? An ICE arrest, and what did that mean? So they can say, oh, that study is from a liberal think tank, or those numbers aren't what we have in our office, but they can't, they're not going to look and say, no, you're wrong about a personal story. We also know, and this is from the same study, that there's a lot of personalized and local information has a lot of currency on the Hill. This chart we really think is one of the most fascinating ones at Network, and it shows the disconnect between what members of Congress and their staffers want to hear in a meeting and how often they get it. So this first number is the impact that the bill would have on their congressional district or their state. So having that state-specific data is really important. It's shocking to me that it's so often not given. And down here, right, we see a personal story related to the bill or issue. Again, a huge gap in what they want and what they hear in a meeting. These seem like obvious talking points and leave behind issues that you will all have when you go to the Hill. But having a very clear ask about like supporting the DREAM Act or whatever our asks are for that day. So all of these things are really important. And I know that here today and, you know, in the pre-conference sessions and all of the trainings, you're meeting on Sunday night before Monday when you go to the Hill, all of these things are going to be talked about again and again, and the prep work that's going to happen. So, so all of these components will be present in your lobby visit, and I hope you know that you are being set up for success. There are a lot of obstacles to being on Capitol Hill, and I think especially our new advocates and maybe especially our high school students who aren't old enough to vote might feel intimidated. I think it's just important to remind your young people, your students, your young adults, that policymakers and their staff work for us. As we like to say at Network, we the people own the buildings in the Capitol. We elect the leaders, or our parents elect the leaders, and it is our right and responsibility to participate in the policymaking process. We're not going to have all the answers about the bill or the ins and outs, but our own perspective, especially that local perspective, is really what we bring, and it's a huge value. And again, raising our faith and our faith voices on this issue is also just critical at this time. And I think that, you know, we are going to hear opposing viewpoints. And thinking about, you know, knowing that is so important, and thinking about how we can continue to change the narrative, especially around immigration, but also our criminal justice system when our lawmakers disagree with us. So all of this is a really strong learning experience, and also something that we all, you know, every single person should have regular contact with their member of Congress. This is what's going to create change. So the lobby visit itself, in terms of preparation, IFTJ, the advocate, has already decided on the issues that everyone will be discussing that day. And of course, it's immigration and criminal justice. A lot of the research has been done, but I think that there, especially on that local level, is something that you can take a look at. And I know Network has lots of resources on local data that I can, you know, if you want to reach out to me later, I can help you do that. And I'm sure the Jesuits do as well. So that's great. Researching your member of Congress. This is really important, especially for the process. You know, knowing, are they on a committee that's making a major decision? Are they on Judiciary Committee or Ways and Means? Are they Catholic? You know, what have they said about the issues before? Or have they supported anything to protect DACA students? Have they voted in favor of criminal justice bills before? All of this is really important, and you can do that, most of this research really easily, just going to their congressional website and just Googling your member of Congress. So scheduling an appointment can take a while. And Kim, are you helping schedule appointments, or how is this working for IFTJ?
So most of our delegations will be scheduling their own appointments. The only ones we're scheduling are for 5 states that have over 100 delegates attending.
Okay, great. So yeah, so emailing the scheduler, calling. Schedulers actually are pretty responsive. It's just the like they'll respond immediately, but require a lot of follow-up sometimes. So, and then, you know, figuring out who's going to say what at the meeting. And I think in terms of that Sunday night prep, you will have an actual worksheet that says, like, who's going to introduce the group, who's going to take notes, who's going to share a story. So all of these things will be at your fingertips to make sure you're successful on that lobby day. And you will have leave behinds that IFTJ has prepared for you, and you will also have talking points. Talking points are the internal documents that you definitely do not want to give a member of Congress or their staff. But the leave behind is like the official document with the ask that you want them to have. And certainly if you have any additional documents, especially on like state data or district data, that is also appropriate to give them as well. So when you actually arrive in the office, you should definitely gather your whole team, you know, at least 10 minutes, just to make sure that everyone knows kind of the flow, the flow of the meeting itself, and just double checking that everyone has the leave behind and everything is there. And you might want to say a little prayer before you go in. Yeah, so taking a moment to review everyone's schedules, making sure that your cell phones are silent, preferably, you know, even off, is important. And the staffer, especially if you're meeting with a staffer, they might actually look at their phone once or twice during the meeting. That's fine for them to do. It's not something we do on visits. Making sure this is an important part is just having one member from your lobby team go up and introduce the group to the person at the front desk. And people can, you know, offices are all different sizes, and it'll be kind of clear, like, where should the group go if it's a larger group, trying, you know, just making sure that you're not spread out all over the space. And so that person will sign in, and then they'll, you know, you'll have a little bit of a time to wait for whoever you're meeting with, whether it's the staffer or the member of Congress. When you introduce, you want to definitely say that you're with IFTJ, and say the name of your school or organization, and of course, just who you're seeing and the scheduled meeting time. And they'll most likely want someone from the group to sign in. And if you're with a high school group, definitely have a vote, someone who's actually old enough to vote, sign in, because that really signifies that they're a constituent and that's what they're really going to care about. So, and then, as soon as the meeting starts, ask how much time you have. Staffers hopefully, you know, can give you 20 minutes to half hour. We do know that especially at this time of year with so many things going on, you might end up having a meeting in the hallway, which is a little unfortunate, but kind of a reality. So just having a sense of how much time so that you can adjust accordingly. So in terms of the meeting order, you want to have everyone introduce themselves and say where they're from. I know everyone's pretty much going to be from the same school, but that might not be the case. I think everyone in the group will be, certainly for senators, they'll all be constituents. I'm not sure what the House, what it's going to look like to go to members of the House and who's a constituent. Definitely something that we like to do at Network is, and this is again why we research our members of Congress, is have that positive thing, that thanking them. Even if it has nothing to do with immigration or criminal justice reform, like, thank you for co-sponsoring that great environmental bill, is a great way to start off. And if it's somebody that really doesn't share our values or our viewpoints on a lot of our social justice issues, just thanking them for serving. No matter who they are, it's a really hard job to be in Congress, especially right now. just remind them what the issues are that you're lobbying on. And of course, starting off with the faith and moral component. And I know that our talking points for IFTJ are really nice in providing that faith language. So, knowing that it can be straight from there and adding that personal connection. Then somebody should tell a personal story. Why is this issue? Why is immigration important? And why is criminal justice reform important? And with the policy asks. So because you have 2 asks for your lobby visit, you're going to kind of go through this twice, this pattern. You're not going to try and talk about both issues at once. So if you're starting with immigration, talking about maybe a DACA student at the school, or if you have someone from a mixed immigration status family or is a DACA recipient, if they're comfortable telling their story, that is so powerful. And then having the ask. And you will have the ask when you arrive at IFTJ, so you're not expected to, you will have that direct ask. Everyone will have the same asks on this day. And then this is the time then when you say, okay, we'd like to hear more about the member's position. Some people are going to be very clear. Especially if you're meeting with staffers, they're not going to most likely be able to share the member's position exactly. That's often not what they're able to do. However, you will be meeting with the staffers who are the experts on this issue. So they might tell you a little bit more about the bill. They're going to paint a broader picture of how the office responds to these things, to these issues. Remember, this is all about relationship building. So we like to say at Network, practicing holy curiosity. Tell me more about why the member of Congress feels this way about DACA recipients. It might it's a little disarming to show that level of curiosity and care for this member of Congress, but you're most likely going to get a more genuine, vulnerable answer. That's going to be useful, and also just moving the relationship forward. On your talking points, I'm sure there will be some kind of typical responses to concerns about these issues. And there might be concerns or pushback that we don't have answers to, and that's all right. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you repeat your ask again, please be a co-sponsor of the DREAM Act or whatever the ask is for that day, and share your leave behind documents. I will say it just now when you're scheduling your meeting, being very clear about what you want to talk about. And we want to make sure there's an electronic file on these documents as well, because handing someone documents, goodness, they could stuff them in a folder, or they could end up on a pile on the desk and they might not look at them for a couple of weeks or ever again. So I think making sure that somehow these get sent to them in an electronic file, staffers especially really appreciate that. So during your meeting, again, just really, especially if it's a more friendly visit, really just how can we support you? How can we support your position on these issues? If you have a relationship with an immigrant or refugee center, would someone in the district like to come on a site visit? When will the member next be in town to do that follow-up in-district work? Asking for a business card for sure, so we can write our thank you letters. So all of these things, especially establishing yourself as someone in the community that can continue supporting the members of Congress offer. And this is really especially for a friendlier visitor, someone who really shares our values. How can we be an ally and even a champion for this member of Congress's viewpoints, especially when, I'm thinking Indiana, where Senator Donnelly really cares about immigration and is in a state that often a lot of the people in a lot of the constituents do not have very different views. And so just always being able to offer that support. So just thinking about tone, obviously we don't want to be antagonistic, even if sometimes staffers could seem a little abrupt or even downright rude. And really, being firm, making sure, right, again, that idea of constituent power and the power of stories and the power of our faith. There's no reason to be apologetic about our positions. Asking questions, of course, and there are concerns that we can respond to very easily, and there might be questions that we don't have answers to at the lobby day, and that's okay. And, saying that I can get you that information is really important, and we'll talk about how to share that in a moment. And then again, making sure that everyone practices the asks for the lobby visit day so that it's just clear and to the point and really powerful. We don't want to give a lot of room for being wishy-washy in the member of Congress of their staffer's answer. So the more clear we are, the more clear they have to be in responding to us. So some finishing touches from the visit. Definitely want to thank them for their time, even if it was a challenging visit. Lots of thank yous. Take a picture, and again, even if it was not, even if you have left the visit knowing that, gosh, this person is not going to support the DREAM Act, really take time to take a picture, especially if it's a member of Congress, but even if it's a staffer, and to share it on social media. I know IFTJ will have a hashtag, and you can also tag the member of Congress, especially if you're on Twitter. So that really, again, lifts up the day, the lobby day that IFTJ is having, and it also is another way. As we know in this day and age, Twitter is actually a pretty powerful way to reach your member of Congress, and so they appreciate that too. Then you're going to take time to debrief with your group, and hopefully, there's been someone during this meeting whose primary role is to take notes. But thinking, what did you hear from this member of Congress? What do they value? What's going to move them on this issue? Do they seem open at all to making sure that families don't get separated? Are they open at all to maybe changing mandatory minimums for young people under who are 16 or 17 years old? What went well? What did we as a group do? Especially, I think some groups are going to be going on multiple meetings. So thinking about, okay, this went well, maybe we could be tighter on our timing, or maybe this story went on for a little too long. So next visit, let's tighten up. Let's mix it up even a little bit in terms of what roles are happening in the next office. Definitely you definitely want to send a thank you, which is why we get those business cards. And in that thank you, just kind of summarize, again, like, we really enjoyed meeting with you to talk about immigration and criminal justice reform. And this is, again, like any information that, how many DACA recipients are there in my district? If we can find that information, that's a really good time to send it. This is also a time to, include those electronic copies of those leave behinds so that they can't lose them in a desk drawer. And then, especially if your member of Congress does make a promise that they're going to vote a certain way, from time to time, go back and look at their website, follow them on social media to see how are they doing what they said they would, and holding them accountable afterwards, a month later, saying, this vote is coming up. You said to our group that you were going to vote this way, and we really hope that you do. That type of communication is really appropriate and shows, that we're not just students going to the Hill for a lobby day, but that we really do care about these issues and we're serious about our advocacy work. I think that's all I have for now. So questions about anything? I know I covered a lot of...
At this point, I have everyone on mute, so I'm going to unmute all of you right now. So This is your 5-second warning. So if you do not have a question, I would recommend that you mute your phone at this point. But if you do, please go for it. If you'd like to ask a question using the chat function as well, I can relay the question to Meg. All right, well, Meg, it looks like you answered all the questions. That's a sign of a very thorough presentation. So thank you so much for
You're welcome.
taking the time to be with us.
You're welcome.
If anyone has any questions about some of the resources Meg mentioned or other pieces, Meg, is it okay for me to share your email with the group?
Yeah, and my email is actually on this presentation.
Oh, perfect. There it is. So I will send a follow-up email within 1 week with this presentation being posted online as well. And I look forward to all of you being part of the Ignatian Family Teaching Advocacy Day in November. So I will see you all soon, and thanks for being with us. Take care all.
Yep. Thank you.